They've called me a whore, a gold digger, a fantasist, a liar, the most unbelievably hurtful things, and I've stayed quiet for my daughter. Welcome back to The Verdict. I'm Paula Todd. In 2003, more than 70,000 Canadian couples divorced. 70,828 to be exact. And if you ask the men who went through it, many would say they were ripped off in the process. We'll tackle that tonight. First, here's the case file. According to the latest government statistics, 38.3% of marriages in this country end in divorce. Quebec has the highest rate of divorce at 49.7%. And in Newfoundland and Labrador, they have the lowest rate at 17.1%. Enough to scare you from walking away, not walking down that aisle? Wait, there's more. What about the cost of divorce? We've all heard about Paul McCartney and Heather Mills, their recent rows, but will it be the most expensive divorce on record? In Vancouver, we're joined now by E-Talk's Lainey Lui. Welcome to The Verdict, Lainey.
Hi, Paula. Thank you.
Who's got the most expensive divorce on record?
Well, on record, so far, it's Neil Diamond, but it looks like Michael Jordan's divorce might surpass that. That is still pending. But Neil Diamond's cost him $150 million, Paula.
$150 million. I'm only assuming he had an awful lot more in the bank. So Neil Diamond's in number one. Who's in number two?
Number two, so far, would have to be Steven Spielberg and Amy Irving. Now, they were only married 4 years, but they hastily wrote down a prenuptial agreement on a napkin in a restaurant, and of course she contested that. He, of course, is one of the most successful directors in history and has had his name attached to some of the most successful movies. And so when the divorce finally went through, she walked away with $100 million.
And that was quite a long time ago because he's been happily married, yeah.
He's been happily married now, and he's now worth $3 billion. But at the time, that was half of his total worth. You know, he was worth about $200 million only then, and she walked away with half of that. So that is number two right now until Michael Jordan's comes through.
How about number three?
Number three is Harrison Ford and his ex-wife, Melissa Matheson. And what's interesting about that one is that she actually also walked away with residuals. She was married to him during some of his peak earning years, and so not only did she get what was in the bank account, but what was coming into movies that he had already signed. So that was the court basically saying you were an integral part of what was happening in his career, and we're going to award you for that.
Fascinating. Now, all eyes right now on Paul McCartney and Heather Mills. Where would they fall if this divorce eventually does go through?
If this divorce does go through, they would come in, if we count Michael Jordan's pending huge divorce, they would come through at 6. The reports out there, the numbers being thrown around is that Heather Mills is going to walk away with about $60 million of Paul McCartney's estimated $700 million fortune. They also did not sign a prenuptial agreement. Paul McCartney chose to forego that. He was in love, he made a decision, and now it looks like that decision might come back to haunt him because Heather Mills, as you saw from those clips, is quite adamant about getting her fair share.
Well, we're going to debate that a little bit later and just investigate how effective those contracts actually are. But talk a little bit about the celebrities. They have agents, they have lawyers coming out of their ears. Is it typical for them to have prenups?
In this day and age, Paula, it is not only typical, it's almost a requirement. When Britney Spears got married to Kevin Federline, and we know how that ended, her people stepped in and basically forced her to sign a prenup. She didn't want to, but she has managers, she has agents, as you said. She has people who earn money from what she earns, and they were protecting their investment from, you know, a relationship they didn't think would last. Obviously, they were right. So yeah, I mean, it is a necessity in Hollywood and in showbiz right now to sign a prenuptial agreement because, let's face it, not many Hollywood marriages make it through the 5-year mark, and then you have to pick up the pieces and divide all the assets.
Absolutely. Well, Lainey Lui, thank you so much for that update. I think we've scared a lot of people.
Thanks, Paula.
we're going to ask ourselves, would a prenup have helped the McCartney-Mills case? Would it save you from a costly divorce? In studio, some of the best family lawyers you hope to find. Martha McCarthy is here, and so is Andrew Feldstein. Welcome back. I don't know, I shouldn't ask you, Andrew, to give free advice to Paul McCartney, because goodness sakes, he can certainly afford to pay for. But let's talk for a moment about a prenup agreement. Would it make a big difference for someone like Paul McCartney?
I think if he does the marriage contract properly, it would make a big difference. The problem he's going to face right now without a marriage contract is he's exposed to pay a full, here in Ontario we'd call it an equalization payment, and he'd have to pay that and perhaps a significant support payment as well. Had he had a marriage contract, he could have planned what he should have paid. And I'm applying Ontario law since that's what I'm experienced with rather than what it would be in the UK. But assuming he was using Ontario law and he had a good marriage contract and gave her some money, a decent amount of money, he'd be doing a lot better than he would based on not having a marriage contract.
Now, the difficulty in the UK right now, of course, is that their matrimonial law is, as one lawyer told me today, an incredible wreck. And matrimonial contracts, prenups, often aren't even respected by the court. They say it's contrary to public policy. I'm going to ignore it, do whatever I want. Let's talk about Canada. If you're getting married today, what would you advise your clients to do?
Well, every client's different, and not everybody needs a marriage contract. It's a good idea to have a discussion about whether you're a person who needs one. And the general rules are, and this applies in most provinces across the country, that if you're bringing a house to a marriage, which we often in most statutes call a matrimonial home, that has special treatment. And if you bring that to a marriage, it's a good idea to have a marriage contract. If you bring something that you've received from family members already, like an interest in the business or a trust interest, you're a very good candidate for a marriage contract. If it's a second marriage and you each have sort of estates and kids and stuff you want to keep separate, you're a good candidate for a marriage contract.
A lot of people, I think, don't realize, Andrew, that if you bring the house and the couple lives in it, it becomes a matrimonial home, and all of a sudden it belongs to both of them. So if you get that prenup all signed up, is it fail-proof?
Nothing is ever going to be 100% fail-proof, but I think the courts usually do respect the concept of you owned a matrimonial home on the date of marriage. You have a contract that says, for example, the equity in it was $500,000 on the date of marriage. You should be able to deduct that $500,000 as if it's your own when you're separating. I haven't seen any cases that I've come across where they've set aside a contract for any particular reason relating to that particular clause. There's other reasons a marriage contract may be set aside, but that one usually will not offend the court.
Right, if it's unfair. I'm going to just leave it right here just for a second so we can bring in a few more points of view, okay? And when we come back? When we come back.
Too many fathers are not allowed to see their children today.
Spousal support, child support, custody. Are men getting ripped off when they get divorced? That's coming up next on The Verdict.
Introducing the new, redesigned 2008 Ford Escape. It's a natural evolution.
Where's the money? Why are you running away?
Somebody decided I wasn't going to die that day.
I just want them to say they're sorry.
You keep that dirty little story to yourself. It was a nightmare.
You came here to have sex with a 12-year-old girl. Have you heard of W5?
Oh. But you got that camera?
If you don't ask the question, how will you ever know?
Are you looking for a gift? No. What should I get my girl? A new iPod or a love song I've written? Well, that has 16 gigs, so it's 3,500 songs. The song just for her. Can I hear some? Oh, baby, your love is my human right. My bark is just as loud as my bite. It'll be anything but a silent no. So we'll go with the iPod then.
People ask me how I became a pharmaceutical researcher. What sparked the desire to spend my days and nights looking beyond setbacks, searching for cures, vaccines, and new medicines? Well, I could tell you how I became a researcher. But frankly, I'd rather tell you why.
The NFL on CTV, Week 11. The Giants tackle the Lions. The Super Bowl champion Colts face the Chiefs. And the Chargers take on the Jaguars. Live Sunday at 1 Eastern, 10 a.m. Pacific. Check NFL.ctv.ca for the game in your area.
You trade for yourself. Now trade up to the TD Waterhouse Discount Brokerage Active Trader Platform. Ranked number 1 for active traders, featuring point-and-click order entry with direct market access, real-time streaming market data, and more. So you can invest with even greater confidence, all in one place. Download the Active Trader demo now. Open your account online and trade for as low as $7 flat per trade.
You know, I can't count how many times I tried to quit smoking. Then I talked to my doctor, and now I see quitting in a whole new way. It was my time to quit.
Speak to your doctor. It could be your time to quit.
Thanks to its styling, technology, and fun-to-drive performance, it's no surprise owners rank the Nissan Altima the most appealing mid-sized car, according to J.D. Power and Associates.
The whole thing is, again, we're just a wallet. Can we get more money? Can we get more money? Can we get more money? How can we get more money?
And welcome back to The Verdict. I'm Paula Todd. On the docket tonight, divorce. We've been talking prenups. Now comes an even trickier question. Are men ripped off in divorce? Martha McCarthy and Andrew Feldstein are in studio with me, and in Vancouver, Hal Lagier with Fathers for Justice, and in Halifax, family lawyer Elizabeth Jollymore. Hal, I want to start with you. I know you're a divorced father. You've got 3 kids. Answer that question directly. Are men getting the short end of the stick when it comes to divorcing?
Yes.
Tell me why.
Well, I don't really know how we got here or how the system turned out that way, but it's almost as if that fathers are considered to be secondary parents and mothers are considered to be primary parents in our society. When the family separates, it's sort of a given that unless there's some serious problem with the mother or an agreement between the parties, and that certainly happens a lot, and that's great. But when it does get into the adversarial court system, the father is behind the 8 ball at the very beginning.
Right from the very start. Martha, is that true? The presumption is still that the woman, the wife, gets the kids at least most of the time?
No, I don't think that that's true. I think that we have a presumption that in each case we look at each family and each child and each child's needs, and that is the wisdom of our system, and that we have one of the most progressive systems in the world, a family law system that is respected around the world, and I think that our judges spend their time trying to be really fair and really balanced and really progressive, and that they accomplish that.
Elizabeth, I want to go right round, and then we're going to get back into it, Hal, because I know you feel passionately about this. Elizabeth, what's your take on this? Do you find that the courts are more wife-minded than husband-minded?
I find that the courts are incredibly children-minded. Certainly here in Halifax, things sound like they're very different from the way they are found to be in British Columbia. Our courts are focused on what's best for a child, and that's neutral about whether it's a mom or whether it's a dad. The parent who serves the child's best needs, and frankly that may be more often a mother than a father. But the question is where the child's needs and where those are best met, that's where our judges land when they're making decisions about custody.
Andrew, I get a lot of mail from men who want me to have a show and divorce because they say exactly what Hal's just said, that they pay, but they don't get, and that they're far less likely to have at least primary control of the children. Where do men get this sense they're being persecuted if everyone's telling us things are great?
Well, here's the reality. The reality is the court deals with what is in the best interest of the children. I find a lot of times the court tries to look at what was taking place before the separation. Who was the primary caregiver of the children before they separated, and try to maintain the status quo. And that's one of the factors that the court will look at. Frequently in society, and I'm going to use a stereotype here, the women are still the primary caregivers of the relationship. Even if the woman is working, a lot of times she still takes on the burden of a lot of the responsibilities. And as a result, then, when you walk into court and the court tries to assess what's in the best interest of the children, it's the mom who is more bonded with the children. It is the mom who has been doing more things. As a result of that, a lot of times the mothers end up with being the primary caregiver. And therefore flows child support.
Hal, what do you think about that argument?
Well, first of all, as I've stated many times, we don't know what the best interest of children is. I mean, it's a well-known fact that in cases where there's an equal shared parenting arrangement, that the children do better. So, I don't know, is that in the best interest of the children? Is the best interest of the children considering the child right now, or is it considering the child as they grow through life and become adults, and even middle-aged people and old people, and how the roles of their father and their mother play in that? I think that it's sort of gotten down to the idea of who changed the diapers, who put the food on the table, and that type of thing. And I'm sorry, I think children are much more complex than that.
So I'm going to interrupt and disagree with that, because when we're talking about parenting of a 12-year-old, it does not matter who changed that child's diapers. As children grow and as they change, as they age, what's best does change. And that's why the decisions we see made about parenting evolve. And if parents do come back to court years after a divorce and say, look, something's changed here, this child is a 12-year-old, is not the 2-year-old we thought about 10 years ago, the court will revisit that issue. But I don't think there are many parents who could say, I can predict for my 2-year-old what's going to be right for them when they're
the root of litigation. I know in my practice I frequently say to clients, can we try and negotiate this without going to court? Can we hire an assessor? Can we hire a third party to talk to the children when they're old enough to try and get their views and preferences involved? Can we go to mediation? And I'm sure the other lawyers here also do the same thing with their clients. That's why to say the adversarial system is a terrible system, I think is just plainly wrong and unfair.
Well,
it's the final system, the final route that people can come to.
The judge didn't
all
have
it takes
to have
in an
the
adversarial
problem
system,
Uh-huh.
all it takes in an adversarial system is for one of the parties not to negotiate. It certainly doesn't mean both of the parties don't want to negotiate.
So Hal,
that is the problem with the adversarial system.
Hal,
it only takes one party.
Speaking on behalf of some of the men, obviously, that you know and that you're in contact with, what are the other concerns they have? Well, I've heard, for example, men saying that they get to pay, but they don't get to play. They don't get to have a lot of say in what goes on. Is this among the complaints you hear?
As a parent, I certainly didn't want to be a Disneyland dad. And when you see your own children on a very infrequent basis, and I'm sorry, every second weekend is not frequent, you don't get to develop a real parental relationship with the children. You simply don't have time. A child-parent relationship is developed through little wee things that happen day after day. It's not developed on a plan. It's, you know, for instance, a 4-year-old, when they fall and skin their knee, when a young teenager meets their new boyfriend, girlfriend. These things happen on a daily basis. And in order to parent, I mean, obviously the best solution for parenting is that the parents are both there on a daily basis, etc. Obviously, in a divorce, that's not possible. The next best thing, and this has been played out and shown in various studies, the next best thing is that the children have an equal access, and it is access of the children to the parents as well, is the next best thing for the children.
Yeah, so I don't agree at all that there is a literature that says only one conclusion. there are different children and different outcomes for different children work. And there are some children who are very young who can tolerate being in an equal time arrangement and do great, and babies even. And there are some children who are the same age and can't at all manage it. And that's about the parents too.
Who can't even.
And there are lots of, that's right, there's lots of families that can't cope with it too.
There's one thing Hal didn't mention at all. In all of his arguments there, he was talking, from what I heard, mainly about what is best for Hal. I didn't hear him concentrating on what really is best for the children, other than citing some studies that I agree with what Martha said is totally wrong in my opinion. There are some studies that say that. There are some studies that say primary residence is better. Quite frankly, I agree in a sense with Martha. What works for one family doesn't work for another family.
So what can be done, do you think, Andrew, to make the system more fair?
Well, first of all, that's starting on the premise the system is unfair. I don't
do you think the system is absolutely perfect? Is that why you're here tonight?
The system is not perfect.
Okay,
there are flaws in the system. The biggest problem that I see happening that I would say is unfair to men is when men do have an arranged schedule, and there are some women out there who do everything possible to frustrate, delay, annoy the husband from exercising his access. It's from booking programs and activities that conflict with the schedule that the children have when they're supposed to see the dad that they know will prevent them from seeing him. It's brainwashing the children to think of their father in a negative way so that eventually the children don't want to go see their father. That's where the system sometimes will fail the children. And it's not really failing the dads.
There are dads that do these things too.
Oh, I'm not saying it's one-sided. Both sides will play this game, and I've seen husbands play that game. I've seen wives play the game. And the big losers and all that are the children, especially when it's both mom and dad doing it to the same children, and they're pulled both ways.
Quick last word to Hal.
I find it very interesting when Ms. McCarthy was mentioning about the individual child and that particular individual child and all of their needs. I've seen the court system. There is absolutely no way, the way the court system operates, that they have the time, the resources, or anything else to actually look at any individual child and what that individual child needs. It's not looked at.
So
the decision theoretically being made on that individual child is a myth, because I've seen the courts and they simply do not have the time, the resources, or the inclination to even look at it.
Thank you so much for that. I'm going to leave our discussion right there. Hal Legere, Elizabeth Jollymore, Martha McCarthy, and Andrew Feldstein, our thanks to you. And from one heated debate to another.